gentlemen, turn your speakers up. It's time for the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast. Turn up the bass. A podcast discussing all things AEW and WWE. Oh yeah! Let's meet the hosts. First, a man hailing from the hub city in Indiana. He goes by @TooSweetKyle on Twitter. The host, Kyle Gagliardi. And your co-host, hailing from the valley of Lake Tahoe. He goes by @JimTuck89 on Twitter. Jim Tucker. And last but not least, hailing from the cornfield somewhere in Indiana, the full-time part-timer, Ian Garavaglia. Turn up the bass. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram @PodOnTheMark.
What is going on, everyone? You're listening to the On the Mark Wrestling Podcast, hosted by the Marks, for the Marks, and I am your host, Mr. OTM Kyle Gagliardi. And joining me this evening is my good friend Ian Garavaglia, the full-time part-timer. Sir, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. After an early exit from last week's podcast, I felt it was only right that I joined you for tonight's podcast, which I also didn't have anything else to do. So I'm going to use it as I'm doing a good thing right now, but honestly, I have nothing else to do. And I'm really looking forward to talking about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we were talking about it in the group chat earlier today about just how much stuff happened at AEW All In. And it wouldn't be right if we just, tried to squeeze it all into one show with the Bash at Berlin happening on Saturday, NXT No Mercy happening on Sunday. Here we are on Come Tuesday, Ian, talking only AEW. It's really a rarity here for OTM.
I like that idea. And we were talking about it too. We think this might become a thing, or at least we're going to try to do it. Especially we have back-to-back weeks of pay-per-views, maybe take that first Tuesday to talk about the one pay-per-view, a recap, leave the Thursday to do some predictions, and maybe go over some weekly wrestling stuff. So that just means you guys might. I'm not going to promise anything because anytime I say something, I'm going to do something or we're going to do something. It probably is not going to happen, but that was a discussion.
It is a discussion, and I like that idea. With all the wrestling that is happening, all the great wrestling that is happening, maybe one day just isn't enough. And I don't think our listeners are going to complain if they get more than one episode of OTM every single week. So if you're down for that, let us know in the comments section. And obviously, not as many people are probably going to be here live tonight. So if you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a like. I think we're at 345 subscribers currently, Ian. Do you think it's possible that we can get to 400 by the end of the year?
I think it is. It is actually kind of insane how powerful it is just literally telling somebody in real life that may be a wrestling fan or maybe he's kind of interested in it. Just tell them about the podcast. That's all you got to do. Hey, I listen to a podcast every week. Maybe you should check it out sometime. Then they're going to end up telling somebody, even if it's like, hey, this guy randomly told me about a wrestling podcast. You never know. So that stuff branches out really quickly. So if you guys could help with that as well, whether that's online sharing or in-person sharing, I think that's a better way of doing it. Please help us out.
Yeah, for sure. And like our friends over at the Main Event Wrestling Network, the Wrestling Junkies would say, if you could just tell one person, tell a friend, spread the word about the great things happening here at OTM and at the Main Event Wrestling Network. Ian, I don't know if you see the t-shirt, but I got the new Main Event red tee on, and you can get yourself one and support the network and our podcast by going to the OnTheMarkWrestlingPodcast.com. It's not just Main Event merch. Of course, you see it in our name. It's mainly the OTM shop, but we did release some new merch this past week, so be on the lookout, too, for a potential Poppin' Large t-shirt inspired by Ian over here.
Yeah, I think Tuck has kind of took a little steam on bringing that design to life, but I need to. If I have some time tonight, honestly, I might try to check it out because I got to do some editing for Tim Vicious, who's also still posting weekly content. So that's another juggernaut in the Main Event Wrestling Network landscape. If you want to check out his YouTube videos, he talks everything SmackDown recap, Raw recap, and if there's a pay-per-view, talks about that. Only WWE, though, not an AEW guy.
Yeah, he'll still dabble in AEW. I think he watches on a weekly basis, but yeah, mainly WWE content on the Main Event YouTube channel. Speaking of the Main Event, we got ourselves the #1 blogger himself, the Great Brown Hope, the MVM of OTM, who retained his title last week on our 5-year anniversary show. So appreciate him as always stopping by. He said, still on the clock, but I got y'all in my ear. Have a kick-ass show as usual. Look at that, Ian. Dedication at work and still listening to OTM.
I love that. That's the best way to pass work, by the way, is just listen to a podcast. I do that for 8 hours every single day. Listen to a lot of podcasts.
That's good. Yeah, hopefully ours is a part of that rotation.
Yes.
Any number helps, So Kind says, Ian-inspired shirt I might have to buy with my first paycheck. Oh, did Kind get a new job?
I am not sure. I have not heard about this.
Kind, let us know if you did. Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
And of course, if you did not know, OTM is an affiliate with the WWE shop. And if you scan this QR code, that's going to be smack dab in the middle. Yeah, I'm not putting it in the corner, Ian. Nobody puts the QR code in the corner. It's going right smack dab in the middle. If you scan that, you will be helping out OTM. It's free. That's all I'm saying. Great WWE merch available right now. I don't know if you saw it. The new Gunther t-shirt is now available. Mommy t-shirts are flying off the shelf. Maybe you want to get a Yeet shirt. Ian, when's the last time you yeeted?
I didn't know we were getting this personal tonight.
I'm talking about wrestling. I don't know where you're going with this.
Yeah, no. I actually yeeted last night. Pause. I was watching the WWE highlights of Raw, and they were doing the, I think it was Jey Uso and Kofi basically curb stomping Karrion Kross in the corner as the crowd chanted yeet for a long time, and it was really funny. So I yeeted last night. Thank you for asking.
I think I was yeeting last night as well, especially when Jey Uso got the win and he advanced in that Intercontinental Championship tournament. Kind says, I eat every time during the OTM podcast. Whatever floats your boat, brother. We're not one to judge, but Robbie Collins also in the house. He said, yo, guys, Robbie, always
what up, Robbie?
Appreciate you stopping by as well. But, Ian, I think we're done shilling. Why don't we get into AEW All In? What do you say?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Could you just distract the crowd just for about 5 seconds here? I got to grab something.
Okay, I don't know what he's going to be grabbing here. Actually, I'm going to make an educated guess and say that he has some fake title there since he ended up retaining his AEW All In championship. Yep, there it is, guys. It's there.
My apologies. Sorry, it's kind of in the way. It's a little hefty. Oh, don't mind that. That's the
it's
actual...
not hefty at all. It's a toy.
No. Don't mind that. It's steel plate. Yeah, no, sorry. I decided to grab this. It was sitting on the floor. I forgot to grab it before the show.
Yeah, guys, look at it now. The champ is here, like Kind said.
Back to
there
back.
He is. To be fair, we had a lot of similar picks when we did the predictions contest, so it really only came down to a couple matches. So congrats, I guess.
Thank you. I was perfect in my prediction, so you give me a little bit of credit.
Were you?
I mean, I was perfect, yes. Surprisingly. I don't know how.
That's actually really impressive, especially for AEW. We talk about all the time how unpredictable their cards can be.
I think it was the first Double or Nothing when I first became the champion. That was also when I was perfect. That is I've never been perfect during WWE, even during the 6-card shows. Never.
Which is saying something, because usually WWE seems to be the easier show to predict, but as we have said numerous times over the past couple months, WWE is becoming unpredictable, and that's what makes it so great. But we're not here to talk WWE. Let's talk about the biggest thing that happened at AEW All In to start things off, because we were even talking about it on the pre-show before we hit that record button. Bryan Danielson is finally the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, something that honestly not many of us expected to happen. We heard the reports, he said it in multiple interviews in the past, that he's just there to put on good wrestling matches and elevate talent. But Ian, I think this was the perfect way to end the show. Send him off on top with his family ringside. Just talk to me a little bit about what you thought about this main event, because for me personally, I think this has to be a match of the year candidate.
Easily. I talked about it many times. I didn't even watch live. I mean, some of the leaks, I knew what was happening during this match, sadly, before I actually watched the match, which kind of sucked. Thank you, Bleacher Report, for ruining my night a little bit. But I talked to you about this, and this is one of those times in pro wrestling where I show this match to somebody and say, this is why I like wrestling right here. It's these emotional ties you could bring in. Obviously, Danielson's a special case. Not really. It's not AEW grown at all. I guess his new current status is AEW grown. But this is the kind of stuff where I had some tears flowing down my cheek. Like, it was some sad stuff. Seeing his family there, it was awesome. And like you said, a lot of people are hating the decision to take the title off Swerve. I don't think you understand. Like, you're getting worked, man. This is not supposed to be the whole Roman Reigns title reign lasting over 4 years. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be normal. I mean, that in the case of Roman, that's what made him so fantastic. It was the long title reign. Swerve, he didn't lose any steam from losing this match. He just checked something not barely any wrestlers could check off the box, and having a match like this with Danielson. This was a moment for both of them, and they both got over. Swerve is still going to be over. He could return this week, still be, all right, when's he going to have the title again? So, and I don't think the program's done with Danielson and Swerve.
It might not be. I mean, there is definitely options on the table coming up in the AEW calendar. I look ahead, of course, to Wrestle Dream that's happening in Washington, where both Swerve and Danielson are from. I think that's a great opportunity to just run it back between those two. I don't know how you feel about that now, knowing that Christian Cage won the gauntlet. He does have a title opportunity, but it seems like that might be used sort of like their Money in the Bank. I don't know if they're guaranteeing that match to happen right away. Of course, you have other names lurking out there like a Hangman Page, but I wouldn't be mad if they decided to run this back at Wrestle Dream and Swerve gets his title back.
So where I sit with it mentally is I think Swerve has something to fall back upon with Hangman, obviously.
Of course.
I think they could do absolutely incredible stuff without a title around either of their waists. And I think that's probably where they're going to go more towards, because they have the heat there. And Hangman's doing some incredible stuff as a heel. I like this kind of unleashed cowboy out of hell situation he's portraying. And Christian Cage, you also have to capitalize on his insane run he's had in AEW. Some of the best work he's ever done, if not the best, as some people have said. So I like Danielson and Christian Cage. Obviously, in the ring, it's not going to be as spectacular as a Swerve.
It doesn't need to be.
Doesn't need to be, yeah, exactly. And they're going the crazy storytellers that they are and how good they are at it. It's going to be, they're going to lay out a story on the table with Christian Cage's faction that will absolutely carry the match through, even if it's very average wrestling.
Well, and Bryan Danielson's father unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, so I am sure Christian Cage will use that in the story here. And
Probably.
You had the family that was ringside for that main event. I think the story writes itself if they were to go to Danielson and Christian, maybe at an All Out, which we will be in attendance for next Saturday, and that's probably going to be what we talk about next week, which, breaking news for next week, you don't even know this, Steve from SEW Wrestling Channel will be joining us for our All Out prediction.
Yes, I love Steve. If you have never seen Steve on the air with us, it is the most, very in-depth talks that you could have. I absolutely love it. Talk about psychology and stuff, so be there next week if you want to talk about some fun wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you subscribe to Steve's channel.
Yes,
he
please.
is pumping out content every single day, it seems, and it's fantastic stuff. Love what he's doing. And let's run to the chat, though, before we get into this match a little bit more. Kind said Swerve vs. Bryan was a banger. Low-key thought he retired, but I'm happy he won. Match was a banger. Beautiful ending to All In. And a great moment for all wrestling fans. It was a great moment for all wrestling fans, and it was great for Danielson, who even went on record saying that this moment meant more to him than his moment that he had at WrestleMania 30, where he overcame all the obstacles and won the biggest prize in professional wrestling. I don't think that's crazy to say, Ian,
No.
knowing where he's at currently in his career and in his life, now having a full-out family.
I was going to say, I mean, when you really think about that stuff, when he overcame all this stuff to win at WrestleMania, obviously that is awesome. That was such an insane moment at the time. And it's still, yeah, absolutely. One of the best WrestleMania moments of all time as well. But at the same time, like, you got to think the real life implications of wrestling now for him. I mean, he's very close to retiring. Obviously, he said in the press conference that he honestly could go with this for much longer, but with his family right now, it's smart to just say, I need to hang up the boots now before it gets too out of control, because we've seen what happens to a Ric Flair when they keep going down that path. So,
Don't bring up his
yeah.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, and I was there for his last match.
Right. But, I mean, yeah, with the family and everything, kids rushing the ring, his wife, Bree, coming into the ring, it was just beautiful. I could completely understand him saying this was the greatest moment of his career.
Yeah, and the match itself, I thought the pacing was phenomenal. It didn't overstay its welcome whatsoever. I mean, 25 minutes for a world title match seems to be that sweet spot right there. And they really never stopped going at it. Like, it was nonstop action between these two. I would definitely say the best Swerve Strickland match that we've probably seen in AEW. And knowing where he came from, he's got his mainstream start in NXT. Never really found his footing, got that call up with Hit Row on the main roster. It just didn't work out there. We are getting an authentic Swerve Strickland, and like you said earlier, even with losing the title here to Bryan Danielson, he's already a made man, and we just saw he got a new contract. So Swerve's going to be fine. I'm not worried about him, but this moment is obviously about Bryan Danielson overcoming all the obstacles once again and having the defining moment in AEW. That's something that's going to be important too, Ian, because when we look back into the annals of history, you're going to see Bryan Danielson as one of the former world heavyweight champions. You can't think of a more credible guy.
Yeah, exactly. And he is the much more deserving, most deserving. I did not say that right, but
it's okay.
He's the most deserving on that roster to win it at this moment, especially being so close to retirement. And it's not a pity gift of, oh, we'll put the title on you before you head out the door. Dude, ever since he's been in an AEW ring, he's been holding his own weight. We've been waiting for him to win an AEW title, and we just kind of went to the conclusion maybe he just doesn't want to win it. Maybe he could just keep putting on bangers and bangers. And we thought there was a slight possibility. Actually, no, it was a realistic possibility that he just retired at All In.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people thought it was going to happen. You really can't argue that there was a bigger, venue event to do it at, because like Kine asked us, would you say that AEW All In is their own WrestleMania? I would. It
has become it, yeah. I'm kind of questioning that when they come to Texas next year. I don't know how that's going to work out, because obviously that crowd isn't going to be like a London crowd where it's a once in a year thing for London to go to this event. Now you have people flying around all around U.S. going to Texas. So I don't know. I'll be really intrigued as to how the tickets sell and how the crowd reacts at All In Texas.
I'm also curious with the venue, too. I believe it's where the Texas Rangers play. I don't know if you know, but I think is it a retractable roof there?
I thought it was the Cowboy Stadium.
No, they're not going there. They can't.
No?
That many people there. Yeah, they were taking pictures at the Rangers field. They're expecting 50,000 people. I mean, if you're going to go to Jerry World, you're going to have to put 80,000 butts in seats. And I don't know if they're capable of doing that yet.
Right. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's really intriguing.
It will be interesting.
I do want to just kind of tally on the back of this as to who might be next for Danielson during this run. I don't know if we're going to move on here anytime soon, but I just want to shout out Nigel McGuinness, because that spot with him coming into that London crowd, making a return to wrestling, yeah, I mean, even Kine just said, how cool was it to see Nigel McGuinness in the Casino Gauntlet? Was awesome. I popped.
We're going to get there. There.
Okay.
Trust me. We're going through everything here. This is all
Good.
AEW All In. I'm not skipping a beat on this episode. It's come Tuesday. We can do whatever we want. But I will say hello. Tino's time in the house. Tino was just live doing his stream. Temple's also in. He said, hi, guys. We got another fan of the Learning Tree in our chat, which seems to be a common trend for some reason. A lot of people are under the Learning Tree nowadays, Ian. I don't know about you.
I can't get behind it, but you know what? You do you. I just want him to get rid of Hook and that whole. They're doing it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
I was just say, don't get me going again. We're trying to stay positive here. It's great All In. Yes. We're not going to talk about Dynamite, but say his name and he appears. Joe Hendry is in the chat.
Oh.
He said it's a retractable roof. Yes, Joe. Don't you have a concert coming up on NXT in like 40 minutes? Dude?
Yeah, you got to get ready, man.
What are we doing here? Kind says, I agree with Ian. It's not like he's his last title to retire. It's deserved, and he's getting one final run before one of the GOATs hang it up. And that's the thing, man. A lot of people are throwing the GOAT word around for Bryan Danielson. You can't blame him, right?
I mean, he's been referred to as the GOAT. I'm pretty sure, like, near the tail end of his WWE run, too. He was kind of had that moniker of the GOAT. I mean, now Cena is the GOAT, but anyway, yes, absolutely. Especially in-ring, pure talent. He has to be in the conversation.
Cage, you didn't have to spoil it. Yeah. I just wanted to call you Joe Hendry the rest of the podcast just to say we had him here. But, hey, we'll take it. Thanks for stopping by, Cage. And, yeah, credit to your father, Chris. He is the OG member of the Learning Tree right there. So take that with what you will. He's been under the Learning Tree from the beginning.
I am very confused, but yes. Good job, Dad.
Good job, Dad. Kind said, watched All In with my granddad, who hadn't watched wrestling since the 80s. He's been watching AEW for about 2 years, and he loves it. Watching him cheer for Ospreay and Tony brought a tear to my eye. That's what it's all about, right, Ian?
That's wrestling. That is wrestling right there. There were a few moments that before the main event that actually got me real close to a tearjerker, and yeah, it's some good stuff. AEW absolutely cooked. The London crowd brought it.
Yeah, and your dad also said Bryan Danielson's in his top 4 now. Getting to
top 4. Ooh. So he's 4th. Why would you say top 4 if he's not 4th?
Yeah, I mean, there's some other names I would put ahead of him, but like if we're talking in ring, that's a whole another debate. I think you could put Bryan Danielson at number 1, and of course, a lot of people go, "What about Shawn Michaels? What about Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega?" It's my opinion. I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah, it's an opinion thing.
Cage says Ospreay's Assassin's Creed partnership was great. Yeah, we're definitely going to get to that here in a little bit. And Kind said for a 78-year-old man, seeing that wrestling makes him scissor me like the Acclaimed is fucking hilarious. Yeah. And Podcast Dad says Taker, Austin, Angle, Danielson.
Not a bad crew to be within.
Could you imagine that faction? Jeez.
That's the new main event mafia.
Any last things, though, about Bryan Danielson finally getting that world title?
No. Wrestling is beautiful, and I'm very, very excited for this title run. Actually, can I just pose this question really quick? We don't have to talk about it. Wait for the chat to respond. Actually, I'd get yours, too. I posted on my Twitter, because I was really very curious, because I feel like we've had a lot of good AEW champions. Can we do top 3? Your top 3 AEW champions up to now. Including, we could include Danielson, I guess, if you want to throw him in there, but it's too early.
I kind of liked your list. I think the OG Moxley run has to be considered. Swerve's run should be up there. And I'd probably say MJF, because I think when MJF was champion, that's when AEW was at its hottest.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point.
That would be me. But yeah, I'm curious what the chat has to say. Ian put that on his socials. So if you're not following Ian, there it is. You can see it right there on the screen. A couple more comments here before we move on. Temple says, hope y'all had your 5 a day today because you know I will. I'm not sure what that means. Not sure what that means, bud. You're going to have to let me know what that means. Swerve, Omega, and Moxley is Cage's top 3. That's fair. Kind says MJF, Moxley, and Swerve. And, of course, Jericho, and Jericho for the Learning Tree. I mean, yeah, Jericho's run was... It started everything, right? You could make a case for it, but...
He was my 4th. He was an OG. At the time, the OG champion with Jericho was an incredible way to start it. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Good.
I was on the Hangman train for that first match. I should have
As you should have been.
The business side of things, and Jericho being the first champ made a lot of sense. But let's go actually back to 0 Hour, because they decided to pop off with what I think was one of the biggest returns of the year. A huge boost to the women's division in AEW as former AEW World Champion Jamie Hayter returned to confront Saraya. That seems to be the direction she is heading, because we know the social outcasts are the reason that Jamie Hayter was on the shelf for so long. First off, Ian, before we get into the semantics of the return, just getting her back, what a moment that was for it to happen in Wembley too. Huge pop. I'm sure that nobody expected to see it on 0 Hour, and I thought it was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, and you could tell that she has been working on her, not only her physique, but her look on her return. And just the mentality of, I mean, she was brutal. She was a juggernaut going through the entire Saraya family. So that was really cool to see. So I'm really looking forward to this like kind of new edge that she has, not just a kind of we all know she's a really good wrestler. Let's wait till what's next. I think we're going to experience what's next here. And this feud with Saraya also is giving Saraya some time to shine because I love her work as a heel. I think she does a fantastic job as a heel. And I think we got a nice little glimpse of it during the All In or the buy-in to the pay-per-view.
Yeah, Jamie Hayter, one of my favorites, probably in my top 3 in AEW women's history. I mean, what she did with the title was also phenomenal stuff. So just getting her back is huge because you now have bigger names like a Mercedes Moné. You have a Deonna Purrazzo. Thunder Rosa seems to start to be getting heated up once again. And who knows? Athena's lurking in ROH, which is a damn shame because Athena, you could put her on the AEW television tomorrow, and she's a viable contender in my opinion. That's somebody I wish we got more of.
Well, yeah, we're not even mentioning Willow Statlander. I mean, the women's roster right now is pretty loaded, and I think we started seeing that when we saw the match card for All In. The 2 women's matches were very highly sought after, which we'll talk about them and how those ended up because I know they're a little bit controversial. But I was on note saying those 2 matches were like top 3 I was looking forward to on the card. So the women's roster is really stacked right now, and Jamie Hayter is just absolutely the icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's so good to see her return. And Temple actually went to school with her, which is pretty cool. Fun fact, if you guys, that's wild. But fun fact, if you guys did not know, I think we've told this story before on the show, but when Ian and I attended All Out Fan Fest, I believe it was 2021, when everybody started going back to wrestling shows, they still had the social distancing and wearing masks and whatnot. We stood in line for an hour and a half to meet Jamie Hayter. And at the time, she was just kind of known as Britt Baker's side piece. So to see how far she's come in just a short amount of time and to get that reaction, it was wonderful. My only complaint, though, Ian, is the fact that it happened on 0 Hour. I mean, I get what direction we were going with Jamie, being involved with Saraya, but that just seems like a moment you'd want to have on your main card. I don't know what you kick off the main card, but that's my only complaint about that, really.
I agree, but I also disagree. So here's the thing. No, hear me out. So I think the buy-in now is kind of changed, especially with AEW. WWE is kind of different because if you are watching the buy-in, that means you probably already have the pay-per-view loaded up next. However, with AEW, they're a smaller group. You're probably going to see the buy-in more on YouTube than it is if you just bought the Bleacher Report, unless you are already devoted to watching it on a Bleacher Report or some pay-per-view streaming. So I think it's a little different because I think more eyes at the time are going to see Jamie Hayter come in. Obviously, the crowd's not going to be the hottest, obviously, but at the same time, more people outside are going to see this return, in which kind of leads to, okay, I kind of want to see what's going on here with this AEW thing. That would be my only, I guess, critique. And also at the same time, it made sense with Saraya because she came into the ring, complained, I'm in the buy-in? I'm in my hometown, and this is the buy-in, and got that heel heat, made the return even better. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Obviously, I see what you're saying. Like, from a Jamie Hayter, mentality perspective, okay, they're going to put my return on the buy-in. They also got to think about the positives of the buy-in and what that actually means to the actual pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, you make a lot of good points there, and especially in today's day and age and how people access professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of fans that are just looking for clips and highlights, and YouTube is a good avenue, so that is a good way to maybe influence some pay-per-view buys as well. So you kind of convinced me that it makes a little bit more sense. Still going to complain about it because I was
also
there it is, people. If you didn't believe us right there. Look at how young you look. You look
that
so
was
young.
that was a young boy right there. That was my 21st birthday.
There too.
Yeah, true. That was almost exactly 3 years ago.
A lot has changed in 3 years. Before we move on, though, Logan did share his top. He said Will Ospreay, MJF, and Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson already number 3, and he hasn't even really had a run.
That's
impressive.
Oh, I think he was talking about his favorite wrestlers of all time because he put Will Ospreay for champion.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Maybe
Which,
he's just talking about his favorite.
Younger fan, I love that. If you are an AEW fan and those are your top 3 wrestlers right now, awesome. Love that for you, man.
Yeah, it's a good top 3 for sure. So
Yeah.
let's move on to some of the matches on the main card. What they started off with was the trios ladder match, which I thought was a very solid ladder match. I mean, you know what you're going to get from AEW whenever they do these ladder matches, but the big story here is that Pac finally gets his Wembley moment. We know he alluded to it a couple weeks ago, so we saw the writing on the wall. Not a lot of people paid attention to that exact promo where he said that, and that's why all of us on the show were thinking, okay, maybe we are going to get new trios champions. That we did, as Pac and the BCC, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta are now the trios champions. It makes a lot of sense, Ian, too, especially knowing how that gauntlet match went on later. Christian got that win. But overall, how'd you feel about this one to start off, AEW All In?
This was the perfect AEW kickoff, and honestly, perfect like a pay-per-view kickoff where it's just kind of hell let loose. You're tuning in. I mean, the pay-per-view entered in. The entrances had already happened on the buy-in. You're coming into the pay-per-view. All of the guys are in the ring, and it was just chaos, but it was controlled chaos in the AEW way of just spot fest. But it was and I don't say that in a bad way. If it's a bad spot fest, then we would be saying, okay, it was just way too much going on. But all the character work, everybody had their moment to shine, and obviously Pac had his Wembley moment. It was a fun way to start, which is how it should be starting a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I thought it was the right choice, definitely, to open up with that kind of a match. A lot of people thought maybe the Bang Bang Gang would get the win. I still thought they looked great in that match. I don't think it takes anything away from them. But Dirk, appreciate you stopping by. I'm not sure if Dirk even watches AEW, but he's here in the chat. Maybe he'll tune in.
Dirk's a great name, too.
It is a great name. I'm not playing that drop.
Take it.
I only saved that drop for the beginning. So, Dirk, you're late, but it's fair because it's Tuesday and we recorded an hour early. I did see this report, though, that Cage is sharing with us. He said apparently Pac was supposed to deal with the Lucha Bros in the match, so it makes sense why he partnered with the BCC.
I was going to touch on this, too, because a lot of people were giving crap to AEW for even putting Pac with BCC. Dude, you got to understand, like, he was given the shit hand. I mean, he was so unlucky. At first All In Wembley, he was hurt. Couldn't perform, do anything. That sucks. Really does. Then this time around, obviously, we have the Lucha Bros, obviously, probably signing with WWE. Who knows? That's just reports. So that leaves Pac out in the wind again. And this is next year. We're already confirmed it's not coming back to Wembley. So you want to give Pac, one of your OGs, a shot at Wembley and kind of give him his moment. And it was another feel-good moment, especially at the end with during the main event when he was celebrating with everybody. It didn't feel that out of place. Everybody's just kind of nitpicking at that point. I liked it a lot.
And I would honestly like it if Pac was a permanent member in the BCC. Now that we know that the Lucha Brothers probably aren't going to be around in the near future, I think it makes a lot of sense for Pac. But that's just a guy you talked about, an AEW OG. I thought he would have been world champion by now, but at least we're getting something with him. And it's crazy to think about that he won those titles with Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, who are two big names, but nobody's really talking about those two. It just goes to show you how much people really wanted Pac to get his moment. He gets it here in London. So I thought overall, just a good piece of business to start off the show. Temple said, when Nigel hit London's Calling, I marked out. I was the one who reported that Nigel McGuinness getting back into a wrestling ring 18 months ago. Look at that. Love to see that. Cage says Pac gets his match and then gets to face Will Ospreay at All Out. I keep forgetting that we get to see that match. That might be worth the price of admission alone, Ian.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you touched on it, too. You said Pac hasn't been champion yet. And I think that's still just kind of the luck that he's had. I think if he wasn't injury-prone, or hasn't been as injury-prone as he has been.
Visa issues, too.
Yeah, and the visa issues. Oh, my gosh, that took forever, too. That was like a year or so. Mm-hmm. He would have obviously been champion by now. One of those Moxley runs had to have been Pac written all over it. Because he's had his moments where he has been heated up and then got thrown back into Death Triangle. So, it does suck. But I think he's still got some time left in his career.
Oh, yeah,
possibly
sure.
could have a run.
I want to say he's still in his late 30s. I don't
I'm
know,
going to take a look.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Kind said the Pac/Neville match versus Seth Rollins in the Open Challenge. Yeah, that was one of my favorite Pac/Neville memories that we got. You love to see that. Let's move on over to the Women's Championship match where Mariah May defeated Timeless Toni Storm in what was My second favorite match probably on the card. I mean, just another match that was really story-driven, but the in-ring action delivered alongside of it. It had everything that you needed to have. You even had Mariah May's mom, who was ringside, that got bitch slapped by her own daughter, which I did not see coming, and she didn't hold back whatsoever.
No. And I think this was kind of a beautiful, like they said, cinema. This was supposed to be the whole gimmick behind it. This is going to be cinema. And I think it was. What's his name? Oh my gosh, what's the butler's name? Luther, yeah. He's even been playing his part absolutely beautifully too. Everything about this match was fun. There was no mess-ups really at all. And this is what you should expect from two best friends. Sorry, they're best friends outside of the ring. I know, I'm sorry. Not anymore, though. Not anymore.
Still real to me, damn it.
But from Stardom as well, and they killed it in Stardom and brought all of that and their chemistry into the ring in AEW. Tony sold it absolutely perfectly. I loved her exit from the ring, too, after the match. She was kind of like going into that psychotic, like, oh, I'm laughing. This is awesome. Which gives me hope that she may be returning as a heel, I hope. Because I think this character could go so much further.
As a heel, too.
Yes, absolutely.
This version of Toni Storm as a heel would work, but I don't know if you want to do it that soon.
No. Give it time.
More meat on the bone between these two after this match, which this, honestly, and this might sound crazy to say, but might be one of my favorite women's matches in AEW history. Obviously, I go to Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker when that happened in 2021 on St. Patrick's Day. That match is iconic for me, but it's on a short list, and to see how quickly Mariah May rose to the top of AEW, all credit goes out to her, because her character work and her role with Toni Storm as just being the protege, she's knocked it out of the park. And I got to give credit to the Great Brown Hope. He's been very active in our chats talking about how great Mariah May is. I wasn't familiar with her before she got to AEW, Ian, but seeing what we are getting now on AEW television, Mariah May is the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still not even scratching the surface on what she can do in the ring, let alone outside of the ring. Also, we got to give credit. I don't think it's a bad thing to say or too out of left field to say Toni Storm is the best women's champion of all time in AEW. I mean, she even elevated. She was one of the main proprietors of bringing Mariah May in, giving her the rub that she gave her the entire run, letting her, I'm sure, behind the scenes work as well. So much magic was happened and was made from Toni Storm's run. And a lot of credit, I think, needs to be given to her. And there was a little kind of like vignette afterwards where it was her and Luther, and they just kind of walked into the streets of London just aimlessly. I think that's kind of the saying, like, hey, give her some time off. She's just going to go do her thing, rest up, have her vacation, kind of like a Moxley right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's much deserved.
Yeah, and I remember the days on this show that we were just talking about how much we despise the AEW women's division. We begged and pleaded for the AEW women's division to mean something. It finally means something.
It does.
And it's not just because Mariah May won the title. It's a lot of people that have been involved throughout the past couple years in that division and the new acquisitions that have really made it a solid one. So shout out to Mariah May for winning the world title there at All In. Good point from Cage. I love the detail of Mariah kissing Nigel to get him to leave commentary. Is that what got him back to wrestling, essentially?
Yeah. No, it was literally was just to take him out of the broadcast booth. I think Tony Schiavone said something of after the kiss. It was the next match had started and said, well, Nigel had to leave. He had to go take care of some business because after the Mariah kiss or something like that. He said something about Mariah. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I do remember hearing that.
It kind of reminds me of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where the grandpa just randomly just jumps up and he's like, that's all Nigel needed to get back into the wrestling ring was a kiss from the glamour.
So good.
I wouldn't complain about getting one either, Nigel, so go ahead and get yourself some. Guys said, I'm happy Mariah won a beautifully told match via story. Mariah slapped her mom. Mariah bled. Tony cried. This was cinema. Yep, exactly kind. Cage says, Mina was shown sitting in a box too, a.k.a. your new Rev Pro Women's Champ. I didn't need to see her there. I don't think she's technically involved in that story anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, I was about to say.
She's a part of it, but if she's not a part of AEW, why are we continuously showing Mina?
Is she not officially signed to AEW?
I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
Correct
Maybe
us.
somebody can correct me.
Yeah, I was gonna say correct us if we can. But I was gonna say I thought that was kind of like the hint at this is what's next for the title. But I could be completely wrong. I don't know. That's what I
Maybe.
gathered from watching it.
If that's the case, then yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Cage says the UK women's scene in AEW is strong. Yes, it is. And Mariah just only spent a year in Stardom. That's crazy to think about. That how far she's come even since then.
Prodigy.
Temple says Ospreay, the way he pinned MJF was something out of Smacking It Raw podcast. I don't know that podcast. I don't, but it's a good name. It's a good name for a podcast, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kind says, yeah, Mariah kissed him and brought him to life. I mean, Mariah kissed me, I'd get into a wrestling ring too. Yep, exactly, guys. So let's move on here. We got a couple more matches to get to. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Hook wins the FTW title. Cool. But we are getting that mixed tag, or not mixed tag, but the 8-man tag tomorrow involving Hook and Chris Jericho. Ian, why can't we just move on?
I don't know. I thought it was, honestly, if it would have ended right there and Hook had the title, branched away, had like a little in-ring session kind of with Taz, they maybe retired the title, which I thought Taz was referring to that on his Twitter, but can't believe everything you read, I guess. But anyway, Taz had a great moment too, gave his actual son a hug. There was a lot of emotional moments now that I'm thinking back at it with that All In. This was actually one of those moments I was kind of like really close to having the tear up on, because I was like, this whole entire time you could tell how proud Taz is, and who's a really hard-headed dude, and kind of had his moment of, this is pretty cool, with the title that he made, his son, he made, having this moment with one of the GOATs of wrestling in Jericho. I know it's sad to say, but he is. It was a pretty cool moment, but yeah, well, we're going to throw it all out the window and have a 8-man tag match tomorrow. Why not?
Yeah, I would just like Hook to move away from the FTW title scene. I feel like you kind of pigeonholed him into a corner, and he can't escape it. Let this guy venture off and do other things. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We got NXT coming up in 18 minutes that I would like to catch as well. So that's another reason why we're going to move through some of these. And I might not pull up as many comments. I'm sorry, but I do appreciate the interaction that you guys are giving us. And don't forget to like this video and do what else, Ian? Subscribe.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say that. I was reading your mind.
The Young Bucks retained their AEW, not WWE, AEW tag team titles in what was a fun tag team title match. I like how they kind of mixed it up with the other teams and were hitting each other's finishers. That was a cool touch, but like we talked about on the podcast last week, Ian, I still think that having those titles on the Bucks is the right decision. They retain here.
It's crazy for you to say.
Maybe we can get some new challengers, huh? Instead of doing the same teams over and over again.
Yeah, I like the Acclaim still where they're at. They're one of those acts that you could keep doing the same bit every single week and it's still going to deliver. That's just how good it is and how over it is with the crowd and how engaging it is with the crowd. FTR, on the other hand, I don't know if they need some time away from the AEW ring and the AEW eyes, but they are incredible wrestlers. Like one of the best tag.
Heel turn?
Yeah. I was. That's what I was about to say. Either a heel turn or just some time away, a new look at FTR, because the whole traditional we win belts. Cool. All right. I don't really. That's cool, man. But the Young Bucks, they've actually altered their approach to where they're at. They altered their egos and everything. It's working now. I think it's finally working again, and it's still entertaining. We still get the occasional CM Punk chant, which kind of sucks, but
they asked for it. Let's be
they're
honest.
not. Yeah, they're not gonna be able to explain it. Yeah, so I like the decision of keeping it with the Young Bucks. Like you said, though, we need maybe like a Top Flight or even the Outrunners. The Outrunners, I think, are putting on some entertaining stuff. Yeah, and then we have the grizzled young vets too, which I don't know a lot about personally because I wasn't a big Indies guy beforehand.
NXT,
so
they were big in
NXT. Okay, so maybe show them more on TV after this. Obviously, we don't know yet. This is the first time we're really seeing them in AEW, so let's see what they could do with it.
Yeah, it seems like the chat's very excited for the grizzled young veterans.
They're
I'm
UK
only
guys.
Familiar, yeah, I'm only familiar with their work in the States version of NXT, but I enjoyed what I saw from them. Kind said, just sad the Acclaim didn't win. Their pre-match rap cooked too, but now the Young Bucks with gold ain't too bad. I just didn't think it was the right time for the Acclaim or FTR. There's not enough steam behind either one.
No, especially since it was a triple threat. It didn't really mean anything if the Acclaimed won. That is just another like tally mark. Then it's just another title win, tally mark. Yeah, I keeping it longer title reigns with the heels makes more sense because what's that going to do? It's just going to make them more tired of the heels. Exactly, and the chase too. That's also in that discussion. So I like the decision. I'm not going to complain about watching the Young Bucks with titles on my screen.
I'm not going to agree with you on that point, but I am going to agree with you that I agree that the Young Bucks should have retained. So I'll give you that.
All right.
Casino Gauntlet match, we've kind of alluded to it already. We know that Christian won. Got to see Nigel McGuinness, which was a fantastic moment, a guy that we haven't seen wrestle in over a decade, which begs the question, now that Bryan Danielson is the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, do you think there's any chance we get him versus Nigel?
That's what I was going to refer to. There has been so much like behind the scenes talk about Nigel McGuinness, especially on commentary. He just throws random shots at Bryan Danielson all the time, which is absolutely hilarious because they've had their runs in ROH. That was some of the best stuff of ROH at the time. And now that Nigel's back, which he looked a little rusty, but I think that was to be expected. But he held his own in the casino match. I'm not going to complain at all, especially when you have Bryan Danielson. Let's do a little retirement tour and revisit and rehash this. Maybe that's a Wrestle Dream thing. Maybe it's that big. But, I mean, the crowd reacted to Nigel in the UK. Let's see how they react to him in the US. Hopefully it's not just a one-off thing.
Yeah, it could be, and I wouldn't
absolutely.
blame him if it was.
No.
I don't think anybody else would blame him because obviously you got to put your health first. But if there is a chance to do it and he's cleared, I think you have to do it. But the Casino Gauntlet match as a whole, it felt like a Royal Rumble. I mean, it was absolutely stacked with talent, like literal top names. Even Jeff Jarrett's involvement was cool, and of course we got the All Elite debut of Ricochet, former Speed champion in the WWE. I know he held other titles, guy. I'm just giving him shit. But seeing Ricochet there, it's something that a lot of people expected. But I thought he had a pretty solid showing here, and I don't think he gets harmed by any way of losing this match.
No, not at all. And I wouldn't expect him to win it right away. And Ricochet, he seemed to have like another light to him. It seemed to be like a fire under him. He had a little bit more swagger in his walk. Yeah, so that's cool to see. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen him on Twitter.
He's been
oh my gosh, he's been talking. So I'm hoping that's real, legit love for not really just AEW and the company, but the business. And please defend yourself, but Ricochet, take it ease.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You got to defend your own opinions, and the handcuffs are off. With WWE, you probably can't be that active with fans, but yeah.
There's still a reasoning why they kept you a little quiet on the social media aspect.
And why they kept him a little quiet on the microphone, but I digress. Ricochet hopefully can be booked good after his debut. I see he's wrestling Fletcher tomorrow. Yeah, that match will be good.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Speaking of Fletcher, was he in? No, he was early. He was in the buy-in. Was he? I thought no, he was in the buy-in because he was on like the big tag team thing. Yeah, that kid's gonna be so good too. He's so young. I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff in the Casino Gauntlet match. If you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend watching it. And it's nice because it's not a match that you get to see. It's relatively new to professional wrestling. I'm pretty sure AEW kind of just made it their own thing. You don't know how many people are going to show up. You don't know when they're going to show up. But overall, we got a lot of big names in this match, like I said, and a couple debuts and returns. And
one thing, too, that I didn't even realize about the casino match, the timer is completely random, which I thought was a cool touch because there was a lot of moments where they had their spot, they ran through, did everything, everybody's laying down, then the timer went off right away, whether that was like in 30 seconds or like 3 minutes. And even the commentary addressed that and said, as you know, the Casino Gauntlet match, anything could happen. The timer is randomly reset. So I'm very happy they clarified that because there was one that was like really bad. It was about 15 seconds. I think it was after Ricochet coming in. And right away it started happening. And we're like, okay, that was weird. And then he explained it. So I like that they finally did that. It was a good explanation.
Temple with the fact check. He said Lucha Underground did the match first. Good to know. We got a couple more matches, though, that we got to talk about here before we wrap things up. One of them being a matchup that we all were pretty much looking forward to, and that was Will Ospreay versus MJF for, at the time, the American Championship, now known once again as the International Championship, as Will Ospreay defeated MJF. Man, another fantastic match between these two. We saw a couple weeks ago that they went for an hour. I prefer that match over this one, but that's still not taking anything away from what they accomplished here, Ian. We got to see the Tiger Driver get hit. I think the right guy went over in this situation. Just overall great stuff here between these two guys.
Yeah, and this was kind of like that normal, very basic hometown win you over. We had Cheap Heat coming into it with the U.S. Title being changed. All of it was perfect. That was kind of like the most old school wrestling thing. It was old school psychology and storytelling meets new school wrestling, which is awesome. That's exactly what it should be doing. It's evolving wrestling. So, and we saw that Will Ospreay, the emotions he could tell even just through his moves. One move that he couldn't do this whole entire time throughout about a year finally hits it. Yeah, you could tell stories through moves in wrestling. Who would have thought?
And apparently AEW can tell stories. I mean, once again, another criticism of mine over the past episodes was the fact that we weren't getting in-depth storytelling. AEW is really starting to dig into it. And this is something I told you personally. I know it's not at levels of 2021 fandom for me with AEW, but I think it's safe to say AEW might be back. Like, what they're doing right now is just great from top to bottom.
I think it's a really good point in AEW's kind of like timeline throughout the year, because I think one of those times that really draws me away from AEW, which it might be controversial to some people, a very minuscule people, but the people that Tony Khan like a lot, is the Forbidden Door lovers. Yeah. They love that crossing of no stories being told, but I don't know, Minoru Suzuki coming in. I know he's now kind of a thing in AEW. I don't know what he is, but something like that where it's just coming in. Oh, he's going to face Daniel Garcia next at Forbidden Door. Okay, why? Now we're having this season of no Forbidden Doors, all AEW based throughout the winter. Now we're seeing the storylines coming through.
Yeah, and then to each their own. I know there's an audience out there that prefers that kind of booking. Just speaking as a whole for OTM, we really dig the stories. We need the stories to get emotionally invested in the product, and we don't really keep up with much things outside of the AEW and WWE bubble. So when people mention Impact or they mention New Japan or all these other companies, yeah, we know of these people. We're just not that into other companies because we only have so much time in our days to watch wrestling, because unfortunately this is our part-time job, Ian. So, you got to take what you can get. But Temple says that at the end of AEW All In, it was England 6, USA nothing.
Oh.
Yes, only in scripted entertainment can England beat the USA.
Don't say that. We've probably been murdered by them in like soccer or something.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, football.
And half of our audience is from the UK. So.
Everybody in our live chat is from the UK, I'm pretty sure, so let's keep it quiet over here.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sorry, guys. Thanks for tuning in and commenting. Don't stop now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. You mentioned Daniel Garcia, and so did Cage. Nice return spot there. Yeah. Ultimately being the reason that MJF lost that match. Now we're going to get that match at All Out. Another just layer in the already existing story between Will Ospreay and MJF. I would say this was probably my 2B. I put it like even with Mariah and Tony. I don't know where you would put it on the card.
This was like if I were to give this match a grade compared to the other matches, I think Swerve and Bryan Danielson, that's 100. I don't think you could do anything better than what they did in the match.
I agree.
Ospreay and MJF, probably in that 95, 96 range. It was really, really, really good. It was just missing that one piece. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because it was on the same card as the other matches. And then Tony Storm and Mariah kind of like in the 94, 95. So it's a 1, 2, 3 mixed match. I don't care. They was all so good.
And there really wasn't that many bad matches. But one match that has got the internet talking is Mercedes Moné, who ended up retaining her TBS title over Britt Baker. It was not a good match. Let's just be honest. It was not good. But once again, this is something I've talked about in the past. Maybe us as fans hype up these dream matches a little too much. We set the bar too high, and then when it has, you see what you saw here at AEW All In, and you're like, that was kind of disappointing. You're really just setting yourself up for failure there. But I do think it's a fair critique, Ian. What were your overall thoughts here from the performance of Mercedes and Britt?
So this is kind of the thing that it kind of worries me about, especially like you said, it's the dream matches and everything. Sometimes just chemistry is not there. Like, that's a thing in wrestling. It's not everybody's gonna. I mean, they probably get along outside of the ring, but get along inside of the ring and kind of have to read each other's mind. Obviously, I'm not a wrestler, so I'm just kind of making an educated guess from what I've learned from podcasts and everything and wrestlers talking.
Wrestling locker rooms, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, right. Okay, true. So, I mean, it's like just sometimes that doesn't happen too often. And like you said, the build up to this match was awesome. I really enjoyed everything about it. From Britt returning to the contract signing, I thought everything was really good. They played it very well. But you also got to remember, Britt is not a wrestling veteran. Like, she hasn't been in it.
She's not known for her in-ring. It's not like her strong suit.
Well, and she's also, I mean, since the start of AEW, or once she joined AEW, I think it was like 3 years in. And not everyone could be a Mariah May where they catch that love for wrestling and get really good at it. It's not a thing. And also, she is a dentist, like a legitimate dentist. So she couldn't learn all of that at the same time. We still love her. We still really respect the hell out of her in AEW. But this match just didn't deliver. I didn't hate it one bit. There was no hate from my watching this. I still wanted to watch. I was still super invested into the match. I wanted to see what happened. And I thought they played each other's parts good. Like, I was emotionally invested still, even through all the botches. Didn't care.
The presentation was good, too. I thought the entrance was nice for Mercedes. Made her feel like the big deal, which she is. But, man, there was just a lot of things that just weren't working in this. And I think a lot of it also could be the fact that where they were placed on the card. Having to follow Will Ospreay in his home country who just won a title.
Also true. Yeah.
It's a tough act to follow. It really is. I mean, the crowd, you have all those big moments, and then Mercedes and Britt is right before the main event. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I was texting that while I was watching it to all you guys. You had already watched it all at that point. That crowd gave them no chance, which that's not me throwing shade at the crowd. The crowd was amazing all night. But like you said, oh my gosh, I'm burping. Ospreay had just put on a banger with MJF right before. Crowd was electric. Hometown guy just won. What's next? Oh, okay. We got this match. We could take it a little easy here. And way too many fans in the crowd took it easy with the cheering. So the beginning of the match I thought was good. Like, that was probably the best part, was just building through the match and getting through it. Just there was no interaction from the crowd. You could see the frustration from Mercedes when anytime there was a big spot, no selling from the crowd. So it was just, okay, what do I do? I'm getting nothing from the crowd right now. So that just kind of fed into it.
It could have also been if the match wasn't up to Mercedes standards. I mean, we know how big of a performer she is. Maybe she was just a little aggravated about the way things go. People have off nights, guys. We fuck up. We make mistakes. It's going to happen. I'm not sitting here and defending this like it was a good match. I told you, it was not a good match. And like Kind saying, I don't think we set the bar too high. I just think the match wasn't good. I'm not saying that's the only reason why. I just think it's one of the factors that could have been involved in why we didn't enjoy it. But there is a lot of other variables that you can watch that match back and be like, yeah, that wasn't good. Okay, yeah, I see what they're trying to do here. It just didn't work. That's all it is, plain and simple. And I guess you could make that critique that she came back too soon. I don't know her status with her injury. So, I mean, that's all speculation really at this point. And Kind says, I think the card placement was bad. Was at the time where people went to the toilet or to get a beer. Similar to what Nia and Bayley had to experience at SummerSlam. That match wasn't bad either. It's just,
I would not have been upset with this match if it was placed right in the smack dab middle of the card. I think it would.
At the start.
Or at the start. Yeah. True.
Right after the ladder match.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. It's just kind of it was an awful placement. I think that was the biggest issue for the feel of the match. Like, genuinely.
Just didn't work.
Yeah, no, it didn't.
At the end of the day, it just didn't work, guys. You don't have to just go out there and hate on Mercedes or hate on Britt.
No.
Give them a chance. They'll bounce back. Maybe we'll get that match at All Out. Who knows? But Last match I want to talk about, let's keep it brief here. Coffin match, Jack Perry retains his title. We got to see real glass in this one. You got to hear the fuck CM Punk chants. I think it was the right call, though, for Jack Perry to retain here. Similar to where the Young Bucks, situation is. It just makes a lot of sense for all the EVPs and the Elite to hold on to those titles.
Yeah, it builds up more of that heel side of Jack Perry. And I think we saw a little bit more of, because at this point, or up to the match, it was just a lot of kind of like quiet heel side of him. He was just kind of in the background of the Elite. Didn't really know what he was going to do in the ring too much. He was just a part of a lot of like trios and all that. So this was kind of a nice little eye-opening thing on what he's been working on his character side, from the entrance to the yelling at the crowd. I thought this was awesome. I've completely forgot about Jungle Boy. That's not even a thought in my mind anymore when I see him. Yeah, and which is insane because he really hasn't changed his appearance other than changing the color of his jeans. So
and his title belt.
yeah, which looks so cool. And I like the ending too. I mean, you haven't said it yet, but we saw the Sting. We saw Sting!
That was really cool.
Really cool moment, and I didn't hate it at all, even though he's retired. It's like, this is going to be a one-off. It's going to be a one-off thing. Exactly. Yeah, so, because I genuinely was wondering, how the hell are they going to get out of this? Because they actually poured lighter fluid, well, it looked like lighter fluid, on him.
Might have been apple juice.
It might have been. I don't know. It was really dark.
We don't know. We're speculating.
Petrol. So yeah, it was a nice little ending, and it was a feel good little moment with Sting and his son.
Yeah, and like Cage said, 10 minutes were cut off of this match, probably why it felt rushed. Yeah, that obviously isn't to the fault of anybody on the card or Darby or Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. But it was my least favorite match of the night just because it felt so rushed. We were going from spot to spot to spot. Really didn't get to tell much of the story. It is what it is. Overall, I thought the show was absolutely fantastic. So let me pose this question to you. If you were to give it a letter grade for AEW All In, where you sit now?
Oh, man, everything but the women's match I enjoyed. Even the TNT title, I really enjoyed it. And I think the women's match kind of got overshadowed by everything else, so it's kind of hidden a little bit, even though it's kind of towards the tail end. I'm honestly going to give... This was probably one of my favorite AEW pay-per-views. I will probably give it a 97.
Which is pretty much an A+.
High. That's extremely high, which I loved it. Even the buy-in matches were amazing, too.
They were entertaining, and I sat there and I watched 11 straight hours of wrestling on Sunday. I went from the buy-in on All In through the entire card, and then I watched GCW Homecoming, which is always entertaining. I love GCW, but I agree with Cage. I'm going to put it at an A just because the Coffin match got cut short. Mercedes and Britt really didn't deliver. So that's why I take a couple points off. But you talk about that big three. The main event, Bryan Danielson, that is the defining moment of AEW All In. It was a perfect match. So that itself puts it into the A category for me. Ospreay MJF was fantastic, as was Mariah May and Toni Storm. And all the other matches really weren't that bad. And it seems like Kyne's in agreement as well. He said, I'm sitting at an A. My favorite AEW pay-per-views watch, I've seen one. I can't keep up with Kyne's fandom, man. I think he just gives up too soon. You got to give companies a chance.
You know what, Kyne? I think you should hold some seminars on Twitter, and maybe you could break that wrestling tribalism barrier. I don't know, because you didn't give AEW a chance for a long time, and look where you're at now.
Be the voice.
You could be the voice of reason. So be the voice of wrestling, Kyne.
Yeah, there you go. Kate says Heyman causing Swerve to lose, another layer to the feud. Yep, another thing that we really didn't even mention. Kyne said, I like AEW. I mean, this was my first pay-per-view since he was a fan of AEW. Okay. We got you, but we do have to move on to our final segment, which you guys already know what that is. It is the MVM of OTM. What that means is somebody that's commenting throughout the show, providing quality. It's not always about quantity, and quality comments to enhance the show. And we had a very active chat, which is surprising, Ian, because we don't typically record on Tuesdays. So shout out to every single person that did tune in. This was a tough one.
I kind of want to give this like a MVM UK. Like this was all a UK chat, which was so fun to see. Really weird to see from a personal. Yeah. Very funny. But yeah, the Chat was very on fire tonight, which was awesome to see. They're popping large, some would say. It was a great night. It was a great show, and we're still going to be live Thursday, too, so be ready to tune in then.
We are. You could say the chat was all in for our All In recap show, so appreciate you guys stopping by. But we do have a new MVM of OTM. Cage my IQ.
Say his name.
Yeah, it was nice to see Joe Hendry in the chat, but being more serious, it was nice just seeing everybody in the chat.
Yes.
Because great wrestling, just equals great viewership, and we just love the support that we are getting from you guys. So thanks once again, and shout out to Cage My IQ for becoming the new MVM of OTM. Ian, you talked about it. This isn't the only show of the week. We will be live this Thursday once again for episode 211. We have 2 PLEs this weekend. Bash in Berlin happening during the day on Saturday. And then, of course, on Sunday, we will have NXT No Mercy. Fast forward to next week, we have AEW All Out with Steve on the show. We got a lot of good things coming up for them.
Yeah, and speaking of next week, you could challenge me for my championship. Maybe I'll go for another retain. 2 retains in a row. I don't think that's ever been done in OTM history, so...
It has. I did it a lot back in the day. Just
all right, no one asked you.
you did propose the question, Ian, so I answered the question.
No.
All right, let's get the hell out of here, guys. Don't forget to check out all the great merchandise that we have to offer at the OnTheMarkWrestlingPodcast.com. There should be a promo code this week. I did not make one. I promise you I will end up making one, so
Thursday.
Stay tuned on all the socials. We have 2 shows this weekend, so I guess I should just be on top of things, guys, but you should be on top of things by checking out the Main Event Wrestling Network. We got podcasts. We got blogs. We got YouTube content. We got Robbie Collins making TikTok videos on TikTok, so make sure you're following us at mainevent_net. Ian, any final comments before we roll out of here?
No, not really too much more to add, but new Tim Vicious video will be out tonight. I know all the people that are watching right now is a lot of UK, as I have said before, so it'll probably be about like a 3 a.m. upload, but check it out tomorrow in the morning if you'd like to. Yeah, please go to bed for us, for my own mental health. But yeah, check out the video tonight. Tim Vicious has been cooking every single week, almost every single Tuesday and or Wednesday, depending on when I can upload it. Will be on the Main Event YouTube page.
Yep, make sure you subscribe to that channel as well, as we are only 9 subscribers away from the number 50. We're inching our way up there, but as our co-host would say, it is a great time to be a wrestling fans. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the On The Mark Wrestling
Podcast.